The value of your company is far greater if you could land prime contracts. And ideally, they're valuation firms that understand federal. What the buyer is going to look for is the contracts that you have and the length of those contracts.
What about certifications?
I had assumed that would affect, and it has not.
What I love about that is you help people with disabilities, but they were solving complex issues.
People buy your team, they buy functional teams. And
Okay.
one way you know your team is functional is if you.
Why don't you introduce yourself and the name of your company?
Sure. My name is Mary Korn. I am the CEO of mpkenterprise.com. I sold a company I started, a federal government contracting company. I sold that business over a year ago. That company was called Pearl Interactive Network, Inc. It was a labor of love, a for-profit social enterprise that gave hiring priority to disabled vets, veterans, military spouses, people with disabilities, and people living in a hub zone. So typically around 50% of our workforce were people with barriers. We grew the company at the time I sold to 1,300 employees living in over 31 states.
Wow. It's interesting going back. You came on about 5 years ago onto the podcast and you were
Yeah,
talking about Pearl Interactive. When you came out that time, was it even any idea about selling the company? Was that even crossed
always.
your
And
mind?
always. And that's one of the things I I prepared an agenda just so we could have talking points. But one of the things I shared with you is when your listeners ask, when should I start thinking? The answer is it's never too soon. I would even venture to say 10 years out, 5 years out, even from the very beginning. Always think of the end game first. Because if the goal is to sell the company, you have to be really smart about how you configure your company to maximize your sale and literally lift off to a new segment of your life.
Wow. Now, you said earlier about being 46-year-old single mom with two kids and start. Is
Yeah,
that when you started Pearl?
yeah. I sold the company. I'm writing a book called Get Fired to Aspired. The whole book is a combination of a memoir and a roadmap of how you go from being completely lost to finding your passion to becoming incredibly successful and how getting fired could be the greatest gift of the universe.
And, for those listeners who missed our first interview, she was episode number 36, and we can go back and watch it. But for those, just for briefly, can you go over so Pearl Interactive? Can you talk about what the organization actually did briefly before we get into?
Yes.
Because yes, we definitely want to get into the sale of the company, how that went down on this particular clip.
Yeah.
But just for those who missed the
So
first
Pearl,
episode.
so Pearl Interactive Network Inc., and I'm being very careful to say it's Pearl Interactive Network Inc. because the company was sold and is now Pearl Interactive Network LLC.
Okay.
So the company sold. We were 100% government contracting, providing contact center and psychological health services telephonically. Only one market, and that was government. And the focus of the contracts we got were all contracts that enabled people to find answers to complex issues. We were never a slam jam call center. We never wanted contracts where it was a one and done. It was usually a complex issue that citizens were trying to grapple with. So that was our bread and butter.
What I love about that is you helped, like you said, unfortunate disadvantage. You helped people with disabilities, but they were solving complex issues. So
Yes.
I think that flips the stereotype on its head about who can and cannot solve these types of issues,
Oh, yes.
right?
Yes, absolutely. And the joyous thing I discovered, I'm a clinical social worker by background. And Eric, we started talking about this, living your joy.
Yes,
And you
yes.
live your joy,
Oh
and
yeah.
my joy as a clinical social worker was this rare combination of loving business and loving to help support people with challenges.
Right, right. And I remember because the person introduced me to you first said that you helped a lot of people that were blind. They were legally blind.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember that.
Before I got government contracts, I actually hired quadriplegics and paraplegics and people who are blind because there was assistive technologies. This is when I owned my own phone system. But there was a time at the very beginning that about 65% of our workforce were people with severe disabilities. And Eric, like I said, we all have a passion. And when you have that passion, and I'm not going to talk about God or religion, I won't. But we all have a divine calling, and my calling was finding a way to have a prosperous, successful business while touching lives in a profound way.
Wow. Wow, that's no, that's very touching and I appreciate that.
Yeah,
And I look forward to the book coming out and reading all about it. So let's talk
thank
about
you.
on the seller side of the business, right?
Yes,
So you said you sold last year, about a year ago now.
yes.
Okay. You said you had always been planning for the sell the company.
From almost day one, any listener gets one thing out of this conversation. Think of the end game first, because that has a whole lot to do with business strategy. As an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs want to go here and there, and they want to have a catering business and a government contracting and a gardening and a dog business. And bottom line is, if you want to be a serious contender to one day sell, focus, focus, focus in just the federal government M&A space. There is so much activity and opportunity. But a buyer is going to want to buy a company that is laser focused on what you do best.
Okay. No, I think that's great. Now, the question that people always ask, what about certifications? Did any of your certifications play any role in any of this?
Right. So, Eric, I'm so glad you brought that up because given all the changes that have happened, I had assumed that would affect women-owned 8A, hub zone, and it has not. Agencies and federal contractors are still held to small business, women-owned 8A, hub zone goals.
Both, right?
That has not changed, and I understood from a really seasoned person in the government industry, it's not changed.
Right, right.
So yes, 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 but any M&A person who would be on this call would tell you in a heartbeat the value of your company is far greater if you could land prime contracts.
Okay.
In my case, I had not. The majority of my business was as a sub, but that's still a very viable sell
Mm.
from an M&A perspective.
Okay. Now, that's one thing
You'll
I did
make
not know.
as a buyer, you'll make more as a prime.
Right.
But if any of your contractors are listening, they can still sell and do quite well, even if they're a sub.
Okay.
Because what the buyer is going to look for is the contracts that you have and the length of those contracts.
Okay. Okay. I'll
It
keep going.
can absolutely be done. And Eric, you and I briefly talked about this. There's a whole ecosystem of M&A advisors, and that includes law firms in the Beltway focused on government acquisitions. It includes accounting firms because they play an absolute key, absolute important role. It could involve banks. So when we talk about sponsors, any one of them, if they knew you were having content related to M&A, they would be very interested.
Okay. No, hey, this is worth the price of tea I've already paid.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is worth the price of tea. So, okay, keep going. So getting ready. What did you have to do to get ready, right, for the
Um,
sale?
so the best way to get ready is the analogy of you think you're going to sell your house in about 2 years. Should you do a new kitchen? If
Mm.
you have a patio, should you get a good fence? And a business owner has to look at their business like a house they're getting ready to sell. And one thing I can't, oh, valuation firms, Eric, that's another sponsor.
Okay. Okay. All right.
You, a really good way to start is, and I had valuation 3 or 4 times, valuation firms, and ideally they're valuation firms that understand federal or
Mm,
government. You have a valuation firm look at your current EBITDA, your top line, your bottom line revenue. They look at the value of what you have to offer. So, needless to say, Eric, your listeners that have complex IT solutions and have a higher hourly rate, they're at a great advantage. The higher your hourly rate or the higher your billing, the better. The diversity of your clients. How diverse, or do you have a mother load at 50%? Because if you do, you're a risk. So it's really important to get a baseline of what is your value right now? And the best way to do that is to have a valuation. And you can find valuation firms by calling any major accounting firm focused on federal. And Eric, if I impart something else other than think of the end game first, surround yourself by people who know your business.
mm,
Because here I am in Columbus, Ohio, and fortunately I had quite an entrepreneurial bank I worked with, but a lot of banks are fearful of businesses that get these large government contracts
mm,
because they are it sounds so not logical, but they get really gun shy of contracts that go up by multiple millions
right. Right.
because they think it's risky.
Right. Yes.
But if you're dealing with a government savvy bank, government savvy valuation, accounting firm, and investment bankers, they know you.
Yes. Yes.
They know you. And the biggest mistake I made initially with finding an investment banker to represent us is they did not know federal. And a lot of times when I talk to federal people and say, business owners, oh, so who's your investment banker? Well, I have a neighbor down the street that's done acquisitions. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Um, the disadvantage of not working with savvy investment bankers is you could leave a ton of money on the table.
Mm. That's interesting. Going back to and I've had that experience with financial institutions that don't not know about contracts and they think it's risky and they're afraid of it. When we last spoke, I remember you said that you had graduated from small business and you're at large business level status.
Yes.
Right, right. Um, can you talk about the revenue you were at? I remember a number, but I just want to see if if you want to
I'm a
bring it
little
up.
gun shy
Okay,
because I'm held to confidentiality because
okay,
of our
right,
acquisition. But I'm really glad you brought that up.
sure.
So, reeling back to your question a few minutes ago is getting ready to sell. How do you know? I think was that your question?
Yeah,
Is
yes,
like,
that's what we start. Yes, that was the question.
yeah. So I go back to the valuation. You have to know what you're worth now, and how do you have to upgrade your home to
Mhm.
maximize the sale?
Right.
And for us, we knew we wanted to sell, but we also knew that a buyer is going to buy a company that was going to face graduation.
Mhm.
So we had a strategy of offering a product that people needed, that was unique, and that upped the value of the company.
Oh.
And so that made us much more attractive. And these are the kind of things that, if your listeners are wondering the question of, and Eric, just curious, your gut check of all of your listeners, what percent do you think are thinking of an end game?
I would say 10% probably. I mean,
That's all?
yeah. Yeah, I think that a lot of people really only think about what's in front of them. I don't think we're trained to think about end game.
Wow.
Yeah, unfortunately, I just believe that people are so excited about just doing contracts in the business that they forget
Yes.
about, and I think you'll see that. I mean, I think you'll see that in the entrepreneurial landscape across the board, not just my listeners. I think That's just
Right.
the general thesis of entrepreneurship, I think, as a whole, is people are more focused on surviving than thriving,
Oh, well, that's a whole other topic.
right? So I just think they're not looking at end game. So that's why they don't have a long-term perspectives, 5 year, 10 year, which you
Right.
brought up, right? People have a 3 month, 6 month perspective, and that's why they're changing and they're chasing two rabbits and they're losing focus because
So
yeah,
this is something that will jolt a lot of listeners and may even jolt you. And that is they may be having a specialty that is so sought after that they could actually sell their business now at a great profit because they have something strategically that could be of great interest. So, Eric, what you
Mhm.
have to offer a potential media company focused in federal is 3 million viewers. So, my point is, at
Right,
any given time, depending on what your listener is doing,
right.
they could be viable right now. And the truth
Mm.
is you started this, but the truth is you might be able to move on to something you love more.
I like that. Okay. I like that. I like it.
Yeah,
That's no, that's a good point. You're absolutely right. With 300 episodes, someone could repurpose that and do something with it, and like I said, a media company could use it and repurpose it and find value.
heck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It takes years.
Yes.
Mel Robbins who wrote this best-selling book. She has millions and millions of followers. It didn't happen overnight.
Right. Right. Right.
So people could think of the end game right now, but one thing not to think about is ever selling your business because it's a fire sale. So if you wait too long or you don't plan right and strategically, then you sell the business for pennies on the dollar.
I would say I think a lot of people do that. What would you think? What is your I would think a lot of people end up in that situation.
It's unfortunate. And that's why one thing I can't impress upon enough is get to know that investment banker, even though you're 12 or 10 years away or 5 years away. Have an amazing relationship with that ecosystem to advise you. Um, if you can't afford a valuation, you might actually be able to do some kind of barter. But you need someone to look at your business, look at many of the things we talked about, diversity, product line, your water flow in terms of revenue coming in, anticipated revenue, what your sales pipeline is, and give you a no kidding assessment. And that's the other thing, Eric. I kind of knew early on that when I started talking to investment bankers and valuation people, they would tell me my baby was ugly.
Mm.
And they did.
Did they?
Everyone thinks their baby is beautiful. But no, but you want that feedback so you can start building the groundwork to making your baby so beautiful that you absolutely maximize the worth. And by the way, Eric, you're not just doing it for you. You're doing it for the welfare of your family and for the senior team you construct around you. Because I, for one, and people might disagree with me, I think it's really important to give shares to your most talented team because you want them to stay with you and you want them to be absolutely invested in the wealth of the company.
Now, just for timeline, before you sold, you have been in business for how long?
20 years,
Okay, 20 years. Okay. So you sold at the 20-year mark, around 20-year mark.
Mark. And what I was waiting for is when I told you my baby was told it was ugly, at least not to its face, but to mine.
Right.
I was told if you want to maximize the value of your company, this is what you have to do. You have to not have a mother load of 50% of your business with one client because you're too risky and you absolutely minimize the sale value. And you need to be in multiple agencies. They could be compatible agencies, but you don't want to run the risk of one agency because especially now. You never know what is going
Yes.
to happen to that
Right.
agency.
Right. So then so you took the time to do that, to restructure, to make sure you could make your baby pretty.
It took 5 years from the last valuation to really make a concerted, focused effort to maximize the number of contracts and also have a strategy for graduation, meaning focus on a product line that the market doesn't need my woman owned, they need the product.
In the product. Yeah. How could you have known this 20 years ago?
Because I guess I'm sort of a serial entrepreneur, and the previous company I was one of the owners of sold. And
Mm.
Eric, I was surrounded by the previous company. I was the youngest of the team, a very seasoned people who've been through multiple mergers and acquisitions. And they were my greatest teachers, and they showed me how it's done because with them, the previous company, we took from bankruptcy and ended up selling it to a national large insurance carrier. So I got to see how it was done. But interestingly enough, the Pearl sale was far bigger than the previous company's sale.
Wow.
I
Okay.
mean, in terms of number of employees,
Right. Yes. Yeah.
the previous company had 300 and we had over 1,000.
Congratulations.
So to your listeners, if you don't have a mentor, get one. They're invaluable, but one that you absolutely respect.
You know
Oh, and
what?
that's the other thing, Eric. You could have mentors as sponsors and business coaches as sponsors too.
Okay. You know,
Just saying.
one thing I like about you, every time we've talked, you always are imparting wisdom and ways for me to figure out how to
Yeah.
generate income and revenue streams. You've never
Yeah.
stopped doing that. You've always done that. Every
No.
time we talk, you're like, Eric, I met this guy and he told me about you and I want to, and you've always
Yeah.
done that. I mean, you're the one that encouraged me to go to WeBank many years ago.
Oh,
You
how did
did.
that
You
go?
did. Oh, it was amazing. I met so many incredible business owners and entrepreneurs
Yay.
and it's still to this day, they don't speak about federal enough, in my opinion.
No. No, there's a huge opportunity
Yeah.
on the table. But
Yes.
interesting you brought that up because they have a statewide contract coming up here in Ohio, and I have a call with their head of programming Friday. But
Okay.
you're right.
Right.
You are absolutely right.
Yeah, there's a huge window. I guess I felt like the people that I spoke to, they didn't have an interest in that, but I can't find I find it hard to believe the leadership at the top doesn't have an interest in federal procurement. I find it
Yeah,
really hard to believe because I spoke at NGLCC conference and they loved everything we talked about on federal. They loved it because it was just refreshing because no one was talking about federal procurement.
yeah,
So no, you were the one that encouraged me to attend WeBank.
cool, cool.
Okay, so let's talk about some decisions for deal close. We talked about exit timing. We talked about getting ready. Um, decisions for deal close.
Uh, you have to, people buy your team. People buy your team. And
Okay.
one way you know your team is functional is if you could go on a week-long or 2-week-long vacation, which is something most business owners wouldn't even think of, and have the operation run smoothly. People buy your team, people buy your branding. So whatever you spend on your branding, your website, your identity, your marketing, that's worth something. Replicable process and procedures. People who buy you want to know you have a policy, a standard operating procedure for absolutely every part of your business. And if you don't have that, you need it. And this is going to be painful, painful. But if you have contracts that you barely break even and have no use if there's no strategy. Because every now and then you have to sometimes, very rarely, hopefully, do a loss leader project where you're not making money. It's really important that you have good business. that has positive EBITDA. And accounting. You have to have a fabulous accounting system because it will be dissected inside and out. And the other thing to be aware of is there is a cost, and different consultants will charge different things. But there's a lot of time and effort an investment banker is going to put into putting your company up for sale. So if your finances are not together, you're minimizing the likelihood of a really positive functional sale. You have to have a P&L that's scrubbed inside and out. So if you don't have a great CFO, get one. Oh, and that's another thing, accounting firms, Eric.
I was going to mention that if accounting firms, right? Are there specialized accounting firms for this?
I know that there are.
Okay,
There are specialized accounting firms. There are specialized investment banking firms. And I know that this is a gross overgeneralization, but, and this will make you laugh. The first investment banking firm I hired, they fired me. They fired me because they had no background in federal and they realized we were not a fit. And I'm really glad they did because I was planning to do it anyway, fire them.
right.
But the big lesson I learned is there's a world of difference of having an investment banker represent your firm that knows the business and the players inside and out.
Yeah.
If you're in government contracting, it's a hot, hot area with lots of M&A. If you're looking at going into commercial, you're siphoning off energy and time and a valuable focus on government because people will buy you if you stay laser focused.
Oh, this is great. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
This is a very popular topic. I did an interview. Well, I did a live session with Live Oak Bank. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Live Oak Bank. Live Oak Bank is one of the top lenders in the country for the 7A loan products for doing business acquisition.
Yeah.
Okay. And I interviewed them. We did a show in Wilmington, North Carolina, and they spoke to my audience, and they said that business acquisition is one of the fastest ways for a minority company to get started is by buying a small business and then growing it and
Yes.
scaling it through federal contracts. And that's what they said. They said we found it's just a lot easier because when you start from scratch, they have a high propensity to fail. And if you buy an existing business, you already
Yes.
have past performance and you have relationships and you have some
Yeah.
credit terms and you have supplier relationships and distribution and things like that. So I thought that was fascinating. So this is a very hot topic right now and
Eric,
amongst my audience, amongst my users.
Eric, it makes perfect sense. Perfect sense.
So I know we're talking about exiting, but I think a lot of us on the other side are thinking about how we enter. And again, not at your size with 1,300 employees, but we've had some people buy a company that has 10 employees or 15 or 20 employees
Yeah.
and start there and then grow it up.
Yeah.
This is a great topic conversation today.
Um, One thing I'm just going to pose to you is my investment banker and I were asked by Ohio State to do like this marathon dialogue between us with a facilitator asking a lot of the questions from the sell side, but then the investment banker answered a whole lot of questions about the buy side.
All right, there you go.
So if you're looking, if your viewers really tune into this and they want a part two, I might be able to work with the investment banker to bring a part two,
Okay,
because understanding what a buyer side is going to be incredibly helpful.
absolutely. And you said you're in Ohio. Where in Ohio? What city?
Columbus.
Columbus? Okay. I was in Cleveland. Actually, my sponsors are based out of Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh,
So
cool.
I filmed there live in Cleveland. But is your investment banker, where is they located?
They're they're located in Maryland.
Okay. All right, DMV.
Just
No, that's good.
yeah,
Okay. Well, only
they're like
because
near the Beltway.
yeah, no, that's perfect. So one of the things I didn't mention is I'm actually moving to the Beltway to get closer to the action.
Oh, Eric, smart,
Yes.
really smart.
Yes, I feel like I mean, yes, I can do well here, but with my presence and my brand and my audience, I just if people in the Beltway know that I existed, we could definitely, like you said, have access to more opportunities.
Absolutely. And there are every day of the week there are networking events
Right.
where you
Right.
could meet hordes of potential listeners and sponsors.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. No, I agree.
Because keep in mind, Eric, a lot of what people don't realize is a lot of the biggies, like the Lidos, the Humanas, they have to have small businesses.
Yes.
They still have to have small business goals. And you're having them as sponsors,
Right.
saleable commodity.
Mm, I like it. I like it. No, I like that. So let's talk about some of the key milestones as part of your exit.
Key milestones, you'll know you're ready. Well, ideally, but not necessary. The preponderance of your business is a prime, something to think about. And one way to get those prime schedules is to absolutely think about a GSA schedule, because a
Okay.
GSA puts you in a position to prime, and to look at other vehicles by agencies that you could position as a small business as a prime. Diversify your contracts, maximize the length of years of those contracts. And this is the beauty to a buyer. How many industries have 3, 5, 7, 10 year contracts? So maximize the diversity. Um, Try to stay focused. If your listener feels like they have to get into commercial, it has to be for a really good reason, because just staying in federal, you're diluting the value of your company because a federal buyer is not going to necessarily value your commercial. An investment banker on this call might dispute this. I don't know.
Right. No, we're here to talk about your experiences. That's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Value your team. Uh, put golden handcuffs on your team for your best players. Give them the golden handcuffs to keep them motivated and to keep them there for the transaction. Share the wealth. If you're lucky enough to position your company for the wealth of a sale, show it by rewarding your team players by giving them something to look forward to when the sale happens. Give them some ownership, or there's something called phantom shares, which is something I did.
How did you
So,
learn
and
all this stuff?
oh my God, I was like a sponge. But like I said, Eric, I had the beauty of learning from some mentors, but then I would attend any workshops I could and really learn it. And then there's nothing like learning than going through it, which I did. And like I said, the biggest mistake is aligning myself with an investment banker that really did not understand federal.
Right. Let's talk about, I have on your list transaction costs.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
So this is not free, and no one's going to do it from the goodness of their heart. And your investment bankers have families they have to feed. So not all of them, but there's a rule of thumb, which is there is a monthly cost from the time you put the company up to sell till the sale. And that could be 8 to 9 to 10 months. The average transaction from the time you make the decision to the time you sell is about 9 months. And that's what it was for me. And there's a cost, and that cost will vary depending on your investment banker. It really depends on your total revenues, your size. But some investment bankers will require a cost, but they'll deduct it off the sale of the business.
Okay.
By the way, the investment banker that's the right person, they have to have a hunger in the belly.
Mm.
And what that means is they have to be outgoing, they have to be outspoken, and they have to be so hungry because they know the higher you sell your company for, the more they make. And it's okay for your investment maker to make a big chunk of change because if they are, you are.
Uh,
So don't count pennies. You want someone incredibly invested.
okay. I like that. I like that.
And not all investment bankers are equal. So shop around.
Okay. What do you have any type of checklist maybe that we could formulate from your shopping around? Like what are some of the checklist items if I'm shopping around for an investment banker?
Um,
Okay, you said
you
one, know your
absolutely,
business, know your industry, right?
they have to know your
Know your
business.
business.
They have to know what they're not good at so they know where to get the information. So our investment bankers were really, really good. As a woman selling a business, um, believe it or not, it makes a really big difference for how an investment banker might treat you because they're not used to women selling.
Right.
And you have to know that the investment banker, it doesn't treat you like you should be in the kitchen making coffee. And I shouldn't even have to say this,
Yes.
but I do. So you have to like them because for 8 to 9 months, your lives are going to be inextricably linked. So you should really, really like them. I have this adage that I've never veered from was when you're making a really big decision, have dinner with the person.
Mm,
Have an evening dinner because that, or if you're a golfer, play golf, because anything you need to know by the end of a golf game or a dinner, you'll know.
that's a great.
Shop around. Please, please don't wait for a fire sale. You're hurting yourself.
No, that's great. I remember, and I thought you were going to go there, but I remember I listened to Damon John. He said before you work with someone, he says go on a car ride with them for a couple hours and see if you can
Oh,
stand being in a
yeah.
car together for
Yeah,
3 or 4 hours. He said that will
absolutely.
tell you a lot about a person. Just being in close proximity with them for that length of time will tell you a lot. I mean, even if you stop for the bathroom or go get gas or
Yeah.
right, like all those little nuances will tell you a lot about,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
right?
So just, like I said, at the end of the day, if they don't know federal, you've got the wrong person or
Right.
government.
Government, right? Right. So that was one thing to mention about mistakes to avoid. Any other mistakes to avoid?
Um, so you mentioned that the demographics that listen to us are a bunch of entrepreneurs really excited about today.
Yes.
Uh, I love excitement. I'm an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. You're going to see all kinds of gold carrots that you just want to reach out to. Uh, if you want to have the greatest sale, if you've spent the last several years in federal, stick to the knitting, stick to what you do well, and get a CFO that is unbelievably competent, that you don't have to teach anything. Because, Eric, in my past, I've had more than one CFO so incredibly incompetent they could have derailed and destroyed the company. Get someone really, really good. And if you can't afford it, I know that there are fractional CFOs. There are companies, which, by the way, could be potential sponsors, I'm just saying. But the fractional CFOs that would probably love to talk to you too.
No, that's great advice. That's great advice. So now it took you 9 months to
Yeah,
sell the company. Are you did you so from my experience, sometimes when people buy companies, they want you to stay on for a little bit afterwards and still
yeah.
run the company. Was that something that was, can you talk about that at all? Or is that
Yeah, they usually do, and I did stay on.
okay?
We had an agreement of 6 months, but the buyer of our company, I think we both served each other's purposes and had, a mutual of you've got this, and it's time for me to move on. It
Okay.
was time.
Okay.
You can only stay doing something for 20 years so long.
Right, right. Especially when you've relinquished the controls and everything to someone else.
Yeah. Yeah, he had it.
Okay, good. All right. And have you had any interaction as with the people that, I mean, did he buy it? Did the same team of people stay in place? Was everyone, did they switch out people? I know sometimes that happens, you know.
Yeah. He bought the team.
Okay.
He bought this incredible, amazing team. And I can't say much else because I violate the
Right.
confidentiality.
Oh, that's good. No, and I think a lot of times especially when it's your baby, you want the people to stay and have their jobs and stay in place. So I think that's great because I think that's what a lot
Yeah.
of owners want, right? I mean, you're like, hey, I
Yeah.
want to make sure my people are taken care of and they do well and they thrive and stuff.
Yeah. So one last word of caution. If you think you want to sell the business, be incredibly guarded about who in your company knows,
Oh,
because you could absolutely put everything at risk. People could jump ship because they're afraid. And don't forget, your administrative assistant could be the greatest conduit to information you don't want anyone to know, especially if she or he checks your emails. It has to be a very closely guarded secret.
that's great. That's great. So now you sold, you stayed on for some time. Now you're working on the book. So tell me how
Yeah.
is it now? How's life now? How do you feel about
Oh,
everything?
Eric, it's glorious. It's glorious. I have a daughter getting married. I've been for the first time I got a captain's license for sailing. I do uh I truly believe for those who much have been given, much is expected. I do
Yeah.
a lot of coaching for free because I can and I want to. I have to be very careful of not violating my confidentiality. So the people I assist mostly are small women, commercial business owners. But I spend a lot of my time paying it forward, doing free speaking and facilitating groups. It,
Nice.
I do what I love.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's wonderful. That's great. I would imagine that a lot of stuff is local based in Ohio.
Yes, a
Right.
lot of what I'm doing is local. And then I just put in an application to do business coaching for larger women owners, and that would be national, but I don't even know if they'll accept me.
Uh, wow. No, I mean, again, every time that we've spoken, you've given such amazing philosophy. And I
Oh,
mean,
good.
I'm happy that we're having this conversation because now people can go back and listen to the original episode where you talked about where you're at in that business back then.
Yeah,
So we'll make sure to connect those two episodes.
yeah.
And some of the things you talked about was, and it's interesting because I even remember you said when you got started that you didn't have all the finances to hire good coaches when you first got started,
No,
but
no,
you did it anyways.
of course, I didn't, I gave up shares. I gave up shares, Eric, because I couldn't afford the talent. The most important, uh, uh, everybody on a team is important. But here's the deal. If you don't have a fabulous BD person, you don't have a company.
Right.
So I gave up shares very early on, and it was a fabulous decision, and they did very well.
There you go. So no, that's great for people out here because I think a lot of times we're people are trying to figure it out. What are ways I can do this? I don't have the money, I don't have the resources. What are the ways? So you just gave people an idea.
I didn't have the money. There are creative ways.
Yeah. No, I know. That's great. So you mentioned, like I said, your social background and social work, helping underserved populations, helping veterans. One of the things that you also mentioned early on is the book Blue Ocean Strategy.
You remember that?
I I pay attention. And like I
Yeah,
said, I mean, I want to try to give people a reason to go back and listen to the original episode.
yeah,
So tell them about Blue Ocean Strategy and I mean, I'm surprised you're the one that said it 'cause a lot of people go through a lot of different books. So
yeah.
how did it define you?
Oh, okay. So your listeners, the question you have to ask yourself is how are you different? Because there are gazillion federal staffing firms, gazillion federal IT firms. Not so many call centers, but what's important is when you present yourself from a when you sell your business from a branding perspective for a competitive bid, what makes you a blue ocean? What makes you really, really different? Um, for us, we were a woman-owned company with superb ratings from an agency perspective. We had HubZone, we had a GSA schedule, and we had a social mission. And the government loves, or at least it did at the time I was there, they loved the social mission of giving hiring priority to barriers. So when people would say, what makes you different? We had an elevator pitch that set us apart from all the other federal facing call centers. And the book Blue Ocean talks about there's a red ocean and a blue ocean. The blue ocean is where you're in oceans that are not crowded because you are so distinctive and so very different. And so, and by the way, when you go to sell, what makes you unique? One thing we didn't talk about, Eric, and I don't know, are we running over time?
No, no, we have time. We have time. We have another 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. One thing uh, that people don't realize is ideally there's a bidding war to buy your company. And you're not going to just have one buyer, you're going to have multiple buyers that want to buy you. So you have to now, way before you're thinking to sell, is really think hard about what sets you apart from all of your competition. Because if buyers for your company are looking at five different IT companies that look identical, because they're always looking, your
Yeah.
buyer is looking at multiple sales. What
Mm,
makes you really different?
mm,
And our social mission, people never forgot it, especially in DC, because there's no one that doesn't have someone in the military that
mm.
doesn't, wasn't a vet, has a child that's a vet, has a husband that's a vet. It makes a big, big difference.
I like that.
Know about government contracting but not sure where to start, state, local, or federal? Sign up for a free 15-minute assessment call with one of our coaches. Visit govconeric.com/call, sign up today, and we will share with you our step-by-step formula that we've used to help thousands of students win contracts. Visit govconeric.com/call to sign up for your free 15-minute diagnostic today.
We've heard about the side of like you said, on the buy side, but having someone like yourself talk about the experience of the sell side is a very unique
Yeah.
perspective. We don't get that.
Yeah.
We don't get that at all. Everyone talks about buying, the value, why you should buy and all the reasons to buy, but to hear it from someone like yourself talk about the sell, I think is incredibly important.
There's one more point I'd like to make. And like I said, if I had an investment banker on this call, they would embellish this. But if you cut to the chase, there are two basic types of sales. There's a sale just based on the money. What is your EBITDA times whatever variable, times 10, times 20? The other is a strategic buy. The strategic buy could yield a lot more money. So, for example, Eric, if I were a media mogul wanting to capture the whole federal media space, you would more than likely be a strategic buy.
Right,
I would want those 3 million viewers
right,
rather than looking at your EBITDA times whatever multiple.
right. That makes sense. Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. And is that something that, I mean, how would you even know that? I mean, I know we're aware of it, but how do we know that the buyers that are looking at us fall into which category? How would we?
Um, a really competent, you can't spend enough on an extraordinarily competent investment banker, and they're not cheap. And you have to make sure you're making enough money to pay for their services, but they know all the players.
So
They'll know.
they'll know who might be a good strategic buyer for your business.
Oh, Eric, if you were to talk to an investment banker and say, I want to sell to, not that you want to right now, but
Okay.
if you wanted to sell to the major players in federal media, your buyer would not only know who they are, they would know who to pick up the phone and say, Hey, I've got this. What do you think?
You keep putting ideas in my head. Why do you keep doing that? No,
I don't know.
I love you for it. I love you for it. I love you for it. I always think this is great. No, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. So you're going back. So the first thing we should do, okay, we're like, okay, we know we want to sell, make a plan to sell, and then we should who should we talk to first?
I'd say call the investment banker, have lunch with them, or better yet, have dinner with them. They'll probably tell you get the valuation. By the time you meet with them, they're going to want to know what are your top line revenues now? What is your forecast? How sophisticated is your pipeline? How many years worth of revenue? Something else for your listeners to think about is there's an advantage, an absolute disadvantage to election because some investment banker, some buyers may be skittish about paying full dollar because who is in office could have an effect on your contracts.
Mm.
So if you're at the cusp of an election, you might want to actually wait till after because you minimize the risk in the buyer's perspective.
So let's talk about go back to the entrepreneurs that listen to this, the female entrepreneurs, right? What some of the challenges that you've had along the way in business that maybe they could learn from some of the experiences you had in business.
Get really competent people on your team. Learn, if you don't know how to manage them, learn how to manage so that you treat people like they matter. Talk a lot less and listen very hard and listen a lot more than you speak to the key people around you. If it's between two candidates and one is much cheaper than the other, but the other has much more quality and maturity, really hand select the best, most committed team members you can have because success in business is a team sport. I'm sure you've heard this a million times. Not one person creates success, it's a team.
No, I found managing people is really hard.
What's that?
Managing people is really, really hard.
And not everyone has the understanding of how to do it. But if your listener really looks hard at themselves and they sense that they're not a good leader, and there are a lot of indicators like people leave you, they can't stand you, you have really bad ratings on Glassdoor. Get a lot of coaching to do it right. Treat people that matter well and send them, give them bonuses because you get that so much more.
Anything else you want to leave the listeners with before we close out?
Just that I mentioned this before. I'm getting ready, hopefully ready to get a book published called Get Fired to Aspired. It's for people who want to, people who've been fired and want to find what work or business they want to start, or people who need to be fired. Eric, you said you're at the top of Maslow's hierarchy. Everyone should be, and everyone has a right to be.
Yeah,
So if you're interested in the book, just check my LinkedIn and its publishing will be announced on there.
I think it's wonderful. And everyone does deserve to be. And the thing that you said is we have one life to live. You said that at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think sometimes we forget that, right? As we go along our days and working for the employees, the employees and for our employers, we forget that. And like I said, I've seen people give up their dreams in these businesses and
Yeah.
companies.
Well, you're not one of them. Thank God.
No, absolutely. Thank God. No, I agree with you. Mary, this has been a
Yeah.
pleasure. I thank you so much. I'm happy that we were able to reconnect again, and I look forward to reading your book.
Thank you, Eric. A pleasure. And I'll follow with you shortly.
Okay. No, absolutely. Sounds good.